Welcome to another episode of Activating Greatness, the show where we dig into what it really takes to lead with purpose, inspire performance, and create lasting impact. As always, I'm your host, Alec McChesney, and every episode we sit down with leaders, thinkers, and change makers who are unlocking potential in themselves, their teams, and their organizations. Here, we talk about the real stuff, leadership that drives culture, strategy that creates momentum, and the mindset that turns good intentions into game-changing results. Because greatness, it isn't a title, it's a choice. It's something that you activate every single day. So thank you for being a part of a community of leaders who refuse to settle for good enough. Now, let's dive into today's incredible guest. Today's guest is Matt Taylor, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Endpoint Clinical, where he leads global HR strategy across a growing, innovation-driven organization in the life sciences. Matt brings decades of experience across talent acquisition, HR transformation, and organizational leadership. He began his career in recruiting long before email, job boards, and certainly AI reshaped the landscape, giving him a front row seat to multiple waves of technological disruption in the workplace. And today, Matt is at the forefront of integrating AI into HR processes. But unlike many voices in this space, his perspective is clear. AI won't fix weak people decisions. It will only scale them. And I'm really excited about today's episode because maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I stumbled upon Matt's LinkedIn where he was posting consistently about AI in the HR process. And there was one specifically about decision-making within AI that had me fired up. So Matt, thank you for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your expertise with us here on the Activating Greatness podcast. And before we get in, want to pause and give you a chance to add any more context for those who maybe aren't familiar with Mr. Matt Taylor.
No, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and having a chat, Alec. The one clarifier, I'm technically head of HR, not yet Chief Human Resources Officer, but I function in that capacity for my current organization. And I think you're exactly, backing up the LinkedIn piece. I'm always surprised that the outreach and the interest in the space. I selfishly post some of that information to get my thoughts out and share, but it's always fun to see the interactions and talk with the others that are thinking along the same lines and interested about the same topics, particularly in the AI space, which is emerging and interesting and scary and fun all at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm excited to have you on is that this conversation is one that is interesting and scary and people are concerned about. And then you have another audience that is eager to have these conversations about AI in general. And, really our goal for this episode is to talk about leadership judgment, accountability, and frankly, why technology is only as good and as strong as the standards behind it. And in that LinkedIn post and in our prep call, you said something along the lines of AI won't fix weak people decisions. It will only scale them. And to me, that's a headline in and of itself. And so I want to give you the chance to elaborate a little bit more about what you mean with that concept and frankly, ask the question, what are leaders getting wrong right now when we're pushing to implement AI as fast as we possibly can?
No, it's typical, I think, with any technology. As you indicated, email came along, was going to replace a lot of things, and web services and all of these replacement technologies that have shown up over the years, and AI is no different. I think slowing down to go faster is really important. It's only going to amplify what you have in place, and if you don't have your processes in place, your decision making in place, what great looks like, what superior looks like in terms of people, processes, what your objectives are, all you're going to do is automate bad behavior, bad decision making, and poor quality, lock, stock, and barrel at lightning speed. And we all have to pause and think through the processes, streamline them, take out inconsistencies, take out administrivia, and well, not necessarily, well, it'll remove administrivia for us, but
Right.
you have to streamline it to the bare bones essentials of exactly what you want before you move forward, before you start implementing any of these technologies and tools, so that you have clear expectations, you've got consistent decision making, you're having the hard conversations before you get into implementing something. And I think the reason, a part of the reason why people say, or the phrase is 95% of AI projects fail, is because many skip that step, or they skip portions of it, particularly the hard conversations, which then lead to the rigor that's required to create what AI is going to supplement or augment. I won't say replace, because you can't replace a lot of it, but you're going to speed up all of those decisions and processes and ways of working.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the conversations that we've had at Velocity, because a lot of businesses are coming to us and saying, what does leadership look like? What does decision making look like? What does sales look like in the world of AI? And how do we implement it? And a lot of times we're skipping the question, why are we bringing AI into this function? We're just saying it needs AI because everything needs AI and every leader wants to be more efficient and we want to cut costs. But not every single solution needs or not every single question needs its own AI solution. It might be in the margins that we can implement Copilot, or the team can use Gemini or Strider or one of these platforms to make things a little bit better. But what we have seen is that question is being skipped. That why AI, or what are we trying to solve for, rather than just, hey, let's start sprinting in this direction. And so again, there's that alignment piece from the very beginning where teams aren't even bought in on how, why, or what we are doing going forward either.
No, I think that's spot on. You have to clearly outline the objectives. So many companies are either, well, I'll say that one of the things I think about before you put it into your products that are going to go to customers, this is an absolute unequivocal necessity. And so we are doing that as a company. But internally, you can do a little bit more experimentation if you're going to be using and creating agents within Copilot or Perplexity or Claude or whatever it's going to be. You have the ability to have it behind your firewall, internally facing, where conceivably, depending on what you're automating, you're not going to create catastrophic failures that will be customer impacting. But it still needs the governance and the thought processes and that pause to say, I'm going to unleash an incredibly powerful tool. I recognize that. What patterns, what administrative burdens, what are we trying to solve for, to elevate our people, to amplify our people's ability to get administrivia off the table, to find better analytics, dashboards, whatever it's going to be, so that you can alleviate those aspects of what's happening or what you're trying to minimize with automation, or simplify with automation, so that your people can then become more creative. They can pay attention to more strategic level activities. So it's going to amplify work, but it will amplify. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? That old phrase.
Yep.
If you're not going to do it well on the front end, don't have high expectations. You're going to wind up in that 95%.
Yeah. Well, and I love the point that you just made there at the end, which is it should allow us to be more creative, to be more strategic, and it's not going to replace that critical thinking, that strategic thinking, the creative process that is what makes humans unique and what makes the business unique. But it can replace some of those admin tasks, the follow-up tasks, the repeatable things where we can build a process. But I think it's a good segue you mentioned the word rigor, and it comes up a lot of times around this illusion that AI brings rigor to the table, that it has the appearance of objectivity. I've got cleaner dashboards than I've ever had before. I know what the information, I'm looking at the data. I've got the process from Claude or from Gemini. I'm working on a project with Gemini right now, and I've got all this information. But underneath of it, nothing has really changed from the team perspective. And what we have heard is that leaders have mistaken using AI, and we don't have accountability for what it actually means or how to implement it. And so I'm not sure if this is going to be one of my bad podcast questions yet, but it feels like a bad one because it's super vague, Matt. But I'm just curious, how do you deal with the illusion of objectivity, the illusion of rigor, and then that balance of automation but accountability? How do we really look at that from a people lens and from a project lens as well?
Yeah, that's definitely a problem everyone's trying to grapple with. As you said, you can build this illusion of rigor with these beautiful dashboards and models that make you think that it looks very precise, and it feels as if you're going to be able to make decisions from them, in a very articulate and thoughtful way. But if the underlying inputs aren't accurate, and the people element's not going to get removed here, and we can come back to that, I'm sure. You're going to need to make sure that people understand the levers, of what makes those numbers move, what happens in that dashboard, the mechanics behind what you've automated, what's happening in that business process. Those remain the same. You've automated it, looks beautiful, but you need to make sure that you understand whatever you're changing or whatever you might do from a business perspective is going to influence those numbers. A simple example, I think about, in terms of hiring, some company might implement AI a lot of this is happening, right? Implementing AI to screen resumes and rank candidates based on historical data, and on paper that looks great. Or you can filter in a series of questions and answers that are supposed to be, going to bring the best and brightest to the surface. But if you didn't look at your historical hiring patterns and understand, was I doing better than 50% of my hiring with these questions and answers? And if you're favoring certain schools and backgrounds and experiences, all you've done is replicate a pattern in a new tool that now looks scientific, but it's really just automated what you used to do, which doesn't move the numbers, right? You're automating a process that is getting you 50% success rates and maybe 10% of high performers. You haven't done anything of high quality. All you've done is remove a little bit of administrivia, maybe, from the talent acquisition team on the front end, but sound decision quality hasn't gone up. All you've done is automate past assumptions. So the discipline, I think, is not really building smarter tools. It's asking better questions about the assumptions behind those. And the leadership has to stay really close to the reasoning behind those decisions. And just because automation can strengthen judgment, it doesn't replace it. And the other piece that I'm interested in seeing how this evolves, is this a set it and forget it type of pattern? Do you set this up and then say, hey, we automated, woohoo, yay, and then everybody just goes back to do what they used to do, and they think, well, this is perfect. I mean, are you doing what I would call wash, rinse, repeat, right? You've put it in place. Now you're going to monitor it. You're going to see if your numbers have improved. Are you going to tweak it every quarter? Are you going to do it twice a year? How are you going to consistently improve upon this so that your numbers get better and better? I haven't heard many folks talk about that consistent process improvement related to AI yet. So something to think about as well.
So much good there, Matt. I've got a feeling I'm going to pull that one out and have it be a snippet on LinkedIn, because that example of the process didn't change. You took something that was working okay, right? It's how we've always done it, and now you just automated that system. And one of the conversations that we've had when we talk about AI in sales, and we've done a couple of presentations. We were at AFLAC in January for their national sales event. We were talking about, if you have the ability to use AI to find more companies that you want to target that look like your current companies that you're working with, and you also want to use AI to give you that insight on why you have a better chance to win that opportunity than another, let's do that. Let's get your time back, and let's get you back in more rooms and face to face and on the phones. And one of the questions came up about, well, I'm not exactly sure who my ICP is. And it's like, well, then AI is not going to help us in any way, right? We are not going to be able to create a agent or a prompt that feeds us the right information. We are just going to build a process that is going to flounder, and it's going to give you companies, but if they're not the right ones, you just became more efficient at being a bad salesperson. And that's what I think a lot of fear is around these tools, is it's going to sugarcoat the inability to be strategic because it looks prettier, or it's going to sugarcoat or cover up the ability to be creative because it looks really clean and I used AI doing it.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. And then, it's that foundational piece. The sales example is a good one where, or where are you pulling the data from? Is it giving you, your targets? That's great. It's giving you target companies. That's, no better than Google, quite frankly. But are you able to layer in what's happening in Salesforce? Can it layer in additional information about where the maturity of a product or whatever service you're selling fits into the business process, or where that company sits in terms of what their objectives are? Can you get that data filtered in? Where does it come from? When you start to layer in elements like that can sort of triangulate not only who are likely targets, but what's the propensity of them being open to the sale or to the call. That's when it starts to become a little bit more meaningful and actually going to likely influence your numbers. And that's that wash, rinse, repeat piece, right? You need to start somewhere. So figuring out your processes and making sure that those are proper, and then layering in good real-time data from whatever it is you're trying to measure, the sales and where the customers are. That could be incredibly meaningful. And that creates, beyond, AI developers and people who can set these types of agents up at companies that are selling AI services. But internally to that company, you're going to need people to manage that information and make sure the sources are correct, and feeding it to the sales team. And what does the sales team need to put into those agents to make that work? There's a whole new industry, obviously, that's being built, and a whole series of new roles that are being created.
Yeah, there are a lot of leaders that needed to hear your response to that commentary, because the word that comes to mind is work. There's a lot of work that you have to put in order to become more efficient, in order for this to actually benefit you. And one of the things that we hear when we talk about change in general is, hey, it's a rollout and you need to use AI more. And it's actually adding more work to these individuals on a day-to-day basis than expected. We thought we'd be more efficient, but actually it's adding 3 hours a week because I don't know what to do or how to do it. And so I'm trying to do it the right way, but I'm not comfortable doing it. And I think there's a misunderstanding, or maybe an underestimation of how much work it's going to take for this to be put in correctly and to actually drive efficiencies in 2026, 2027 and beyond.
Yeah, that front end piece, I know and I'll continue to harp on it because I see that as being the fundamental starting point where the flaws Sure. A lot of the companies, business groups, whoever's trying to implement these technologies, they struggle to find what success looks like in clear and measurable ways. Um, the work doesn't go away, right? There is an
Yep.
investment on the front end, but it pays off really quickly, in terms of, at the end of the day, the big dynamic I see changing around people and AI, it's not really going to replace folks. I know that's in the headlines, and this is
Yeah.
a period of time where there's a ton of layoffs out there, and my heart goes out to those that may be within those ranks at this point in time. But the fundamental piece is, it's the main differentiator when things sort of normalize a little bit. The Those who use AI will replace those who don't. And so, about a year ago, maybe a little longer, I challenged myself right before one of my team meetings to kind of prove a point to myself, and wanted to prove one to the team. So I gave myself 8 minutes before the team meeting started. Didn't prepare anything. Created a short slide deck using one of the AI tools. I'll be agnostic. I won't say which one it is. Created the slide deck, put it together. No automation, but had cool pictures and stuff in there, and it was meaningful. I went through the PowerPoint and did the presentation for about 20 minutes with the team about AI and why you should use it, and what to think about, and the governance and the risk, and don't put employee data in there, don't put customer data in there, all that fun stuff. And at the end, the clincher was, I said, and by the way, folks, if you don't think this is important and this isn't going to drive home for you what I just spent 20 minutes talking to you about, I created this presentation in 8 minutes before this call. And that
Mm.
struck a chord with all of them, because it hit the efficiency piece. It hit the, hey, I can actually do this. And I espouse, I'm not smarter than any of them, but collectively we're smarter together. And they got it. And so the team is much more, the team is using it effectively. I can see it in their work. And I'm happy that that's the case, because they won't be the have-nots. They won't be the folks that aren't interested in learning. They're using it, and I'm happy that they are. And I have some new interesting ways to challenge them this year. But that's key, is to make sure that people are using it and people are responsible about it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's part of it is owning your own growth, right? That is, our CEO Dave Feckman and I, we've done a couple of these presentations now at this point on sales and AI, and after spending 5 minutes talking about the regulations and your AI policy and all of the right things that you have to clarify, we kind of have a sentiment that's like, this is up to you. You have to take all of that information in, and if you want to get better and become more efficient, do it. And you have to have a little bit of autonomy in owning that. And similar to your story about the PowerPoint, we walk through this incredible landing page. They're showing up to a presentation. They think it's going to be boring because it's going to be 45 minutes slide deck, and it's a really sleek looking website, and there's some interactivity. There's a magic wand exercise. There's a couple other really fun pieces. And I say, by the way, this took me 27 minutes to build with Gemini. I gave it the information. It built it out for me. I made a couple of tweaks, and now I'm presenting it to 500 people here. It looks great. And you would have had no idea. And the reaction that we typically get is somewhere in between, I don't believe you, and dumbfounded that you can use it in such a simplistic way that you can actually implement it. And I think that's part of the lack of knowledge, that I'm not talking about building an agent that scans everything in the world and it is the most powerful tool and it changes the way business is done forever. I'm talking about, hey, I have a presentation next week and I don't have time. I'm going to take my Fireflies AI notes and I'm going to throw that into Claude, and I'm going to have it spin out a one pager that I can send as a follow-up. And instead of that taking me 5 hours, it took me 30 minutes. And the client is happy, right? And that's to me where there is a disconnect on what's possible with AI and what's actually going to help me tomorrow and help my team tomorrow. And those two things are very, very, very far apart on the spectrum of AI going forward too.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Um, it makes the case for itself when presented in the
Yeah.
right way, and the teams get it, customers get it, business leaders get it, but I still think we're in those very, very early stages of everyone agrees for the most part this technology is going to change the face of work. Um, but I don't think everyone's figured out just exactly how, and what judgment sits behind layering AI into any type of business process, and the foundational questions that sort of need to be addressed, and the real unvarnished radical candor like discussions that have to happen at the leadership level to boil everything down to the must-haves, the absolutes, right?
Mm. Yeah, the book that is holding up this podcast mic right here is Radical Candor by our friend Kim Scott, and so I'm a big believer in that thought process in general. I do have a bad podcast question, Matt. I'm allowed one because I make the rules on the Activating Greatness
No problem.
podcast, and so I am curious. We have a lot of HR leaders that are listening to this, and there's this interesting conversation around HR is a change management conversation inside of businesses. It's something that is a lot of times coming from leadership or HR or from innovation, but it is changing the way that we do business. And one of the questions that we get is, what's the role of HR in AI being implemented across teams, across functions? And I haven't asked that of anybody yet. And so you get to answer, or find a way to give me an answer on the bad podcast question of how do HR teams use this? And how do HR teams react to this becoming a bigger thing for employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. I won't say I have all the answers, but I'll share some thoughts. So, the good
Please.
news is, HR definitely needs to be on the governance committee around that technology. The policy wonk piece, right? That you've got to have some guidelines and rules to keep us out of court. But I think when anything new or novel comes up, or anything challenging comes up, I think looking at the basics, like HR's primary function is to protect the company, to protect the company and protect the employees, to take care of both of those things. And I think making sure that what you're implementing and advising, right? We're the advisors. We point out the risks. We point out what great performance, talent, compensation programs, whatever it is. We point out what great is, and then we point out risks along the way and help business leaders make decisions around those things. In many cases, unless it's within our domain and within our department, for the most part, I think we help them make those decisions. We shine lights on the dark shadow areas that they don't want to touch. We push on the difficult questions and flag the big problems and help them not avoid the difficult conversations around this technology, and work with them to figure out in what environments is it going to have the best impact to influence the business. So I think we operate as the facilitator in that way, by protecting the employees and the company. Maybe in 2 years, when everything matures a little bit more, my answer would be a little bit different, but I think that's the best I can do with where we are with the technology, and how HR should be the enabler around that to support the business.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I asked it, and I love the thought process around, one of your roles and responsibilities is to understand what grade is and what risks there are, and this is no different, right? As we talk about other changes that have happened in the last 6 years, work from home, remote, return to office mandates. There's so many different avenues of this, and I think AI is just another one of those talking points. So I appreciate you letting me ask that bad podcast question and giving the answer. And I think, over the next couple of months on your LinkedIn, I'm going to stay in tune because I think you're going to continue to answer that question in different ways as we learn more and more gets implemented over the next couple of years as well.
Absolutely. No,
I do.
I'll let you
I
know.
do want to take us. Oh, please. You got more to add to that one? I mean, that was a bad question, so I'm excited.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think it dovetails into one of my favorite topics is about leadership courage, and I think we touched on this, and that's an
Yeah.
important piece. Like one of the risks that I see in AI and leadership where they intersect is having leaders hide behind technology, right? We've just implemented some things. We've created a number of things. We have AI agents internally to help employees through Copilot. We have a lot of customer-facing AI tools in products, but we just implemented a third-party AI tool in our talent acquisition platform in India. And what I'm interested to see, and what I hope doesn't happen, but I've been reading is occurring, is for leadership, it's easy to say, like, the model recommends this candidate or a model flagged this employee. And what I want to safeguard against is leadership outsourcing decisions or problems. It's about owning them, right? And so leadership courage is incredibly important to make sure you have it. Again, the fundamentals before you even start this stuff. All of these things from an HR perspective, going back to the bad question, we have to be able to explain why a decision was made, what factors were considered, and own those things. And it's the governance piece, right? Technology should support the thinking that we're all going to be held accountable for. And I worry about leaders, deferring too much authority to the algorithms and maybe losing something essential in the organizations like human judgment, trust, accountability. Going back to those fundamentals. I think the best companies, the best leaders are going to leverage the tool, leverage AI. But they also have to remember they're remaining fully responsible for the decisions and the shape of their teams and their cultures tied to these things. So, be on the lookout for that. Be vigilant about that, and that's something that I think about as well.
Yeah. Well, I know that was one of our talking points, and I think that in its own right is an entire episode. I have this pulled up. I've got the HBR's decision making. The 10 best reads on decision making. It came as part of my subscription for this month, and there's a whole section in here on human being decision making in the land of AI. And it also talks about, on top of everything that you just mentioned, it also talks about taking away opportunities for emerging leaders to learn that skill and that talent development. I'm making a decision as a 26-year-old on my own, and there's stakes in the game. While it might not alter the trajectory of the business, it's a real life decision that I have to make, and there are consequences. And now, as some of those junior roles are being pulled away, that skill is being lost. And I think a concern that a lot of leaders have is, what's that gap going to look like? And when will we feel it? We might not feel it today, but a decade from now, will we really start to feel the impact of not having what you just walked through be accessible for those that are graduating or those that are new to the industry or new to the company?
Yeah, that's a conundrum that I'm reading quite a bit about. I don't think anybody has the answers yet, but that's spot on in terms of, are we creating a future leadership gap 3, 5, 10 years from now, where those early career roles in the, making it up, 1 to 5, 6, 7 year period, where they have that opportunity to learn the business, learn the foundations of their particular discipline, how to operate within the frameworks of, business operations, make mistakes, learn from them, pivot. If all of those experiences don't exist for that age group, that demographic,
Yeah.
how do we account for that in 10 years time? There's that I would already argue, and I haven't seen anyone talking about this. I mean, there is a lack of leadership, for a multitude of reasons. There's not a lack of people, but there's a lack of targeted, experienced experts for the C-suite. You look at the turnover at the VP level. The turnover is pretty wild these days. So you've kind of got the gap on both sides. And what are we doing for the mid-career folks?
Yeah.
Are we setting them up for success with the right succession plans and the right learning experiences to help offset what we think is about to happen? Don't know the answer yet. And it's
Mm.
funny. We're bringing. I see companies bringing in a lot of interns. And there's a lot. The intern population is still really strong, I think, but that 1 to 5, 6, 7 year experienced person, I don't see as many of those opportunities out there.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting tangent to go down, but it also ties back to some of the stuff we talked about earlier with, if the process is bad, AI is just going to automate a bad process.
Mhm.
And historically, one of the things that Velocity knows is companies love promoting individual contributors who are really good at being an individual contributor, but have no experience from a management or leadership standpoint. They end up getting to a vice president position, and then 6 months later, they're out of that vice president position because they didn't have the proper training. And this, again, feels like one of those things where it's a problem that already exists. And now AI, despite all of the positives that you and I have talked about, and that I will continue to talk about, you're adding another layer of a negative towards leadership, decision making, and the ability to sit in those positions and to actually have a, I don't want to be able to own that responsibility of sitting in that position and understand what it takes to be successful in that role. I think we're going to have less and less of those individuals, which is going to increase that turnover, which we already know is a problem for a lot of companies across the life sciences, across construction, and certainly in the insurance space, where Velocity really plays in those three areas. Super interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, at least in the discussions and the reading that I've been doing, a lot of the AI applications around identifying great talent at any level is focusing on the nuts and bolts or the technical. And I'd be curious to see, how, and I'm sure it's happening. Someone out there is doing this. Be curious to see how we're getting to find the great humans, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
Like Netflix would say, we hire fully functioning humans. Well, how are we getting to that? What's the series of questions and behaviors and experiences that you can suss out through using this tool with potential hires and colleagues? How are you getting to that target? Most companies don't do that well, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's, in my experience, having done a lot of hiring, you definitely do that at the executive level, and you have all sorts of assessments, and there's dozens, and I won't name names, but lots for the executives, many for sales, and there are a lot of them that have been designed for everyone else, for lack of a better tool, but
Yeah.
or mentioned. But I don't see that happening, or at least in the circles I'm traveling, like that would be incredibly useful to be able to get to those individuals that would be the right ones to invest in, because you're conceivably going to have fewer people with better expertise, with automation and expertise in AI. And then you want to identify those high flying successors by using these tools and then creating the development plans to keep them and care and feed and nurture them once you've hired them to become your next generation leaders. So, there's an answer in there somewhere, but I haven't seen those technologies yet. I'm sure someone has. It's working now.
I do think that's kind of the ultimatum in this conversation, which is in our prep call, we talked about this and we've talked about it in a couple of our presentations on this. If you were in AI or starting AI maybe a year or two ago, you were an early adopter. Now in 2026, I mean, I can't listen to a podcast or watch a television show without being inundated with ads about AI. And yet we still really aren't sure its best application for so many of these different items within the business world. We just know it can. It's possible, and that's where I think, I'm not on the side where it's like there's a bubble, right? Like it's going to pop, it's going to burst. There's not going to be hundreds of thousands of tools that are AI specific. Some of those companies are going to succeed, and some aren't. But there's no going back. The genie is out of the bottle, for lack of a better phrase. And we automatically are going to be working with AI as part of our function, one way or the other, for here until somebody changes that rule and comes up with something different. And I think that example is a testament to where we are at in this timeline of the technology.
Yeah, it's like when you remember the early days of the internet and some of the tools out there that are now nameless. Like we haven't even seen we're not even near the consolidation phase yet. We're still seeing new tools pop up here and there, and some companies are going all in on Copilot, and some are going all in on Claude, and some are using a array of different technologies, and the possibility exists because it's just the nature of the beast. These technologies are going to morph, and they're going to be buyouts, and there's going to be winners and losers. So I think the best advice isn't to try to pick the winners and losers, but make your best educated guess and start using them and start implementing them. Pick the right business processes, pick the right objectives that you'll want to try to improve, or administratively you want to alleviate, and then just get really good at managing and maintaining and monitoring, and that wash, rinse, repeat cycle of improving it at whatever cadence needs to happen. But it's exciting times for sure. I mean, I love that cycle of it for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not set it and forget it. This is something that is going to be iterated on time and time again. Matt, I can't thank you enough. This has been exactly what I was hoping for. It's our first episode so far that is really AI focused. I appreciate you coming and sharing all of your thoughts with us, because I think it's an episode that you're going to get people who are listening to it because they're really excited about the topic. You're going to get people who are listening to it because they're really pessimistic. And then you're going to get people who are like, I have no idea. I just need someone to tell me a little bit more. So I really appreciate it. I do want to hit some rapid fire questions really quick that we ask every leader on the show. And 4 quick ones, 30 seconds each. Question number 1, what is one leadership habit that you rely on every day?
Clarity, making sure people know what success looks like and where we're going. I think most problems that I see disappear when expectations are clear. So it makes my life easier in the long run.
I love it, and that's a recurring theme. The clear is kind, calmly demand clarity. It's a fantastic answer, and under 30 seconds, which is honestly really impressive. Number 2, what is the most underrated skill that a leader needs in order to be successful today?
Yeah, we touched on it. It's radical candor. I think not avoiding the elephant in the room, the really hard questions, giving honest feedback early to people. Yeah, yeah. I try to mitigate risk. Right, I spend most of my time mitigating risk in lots of ways, and most problems in organizations come from avoiding conversations and decisions that should have happened months earlier, or may have happened and didn't get executed. Uh, there's so many examples of that. Radical candor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Honest feedback.
I think it's a required reading for any new manager, any leader. I couldn't agree more on that one. All right. Question number 3, on the opposite end of this, what is something that great leaders need to stop doing, that we should stop doing in 2026?
Yeah, trying to placate everyone, right? Trying to keep everybody warm and comfy and cozy. That's just not the job of a leader, in my opinion. You need to make decisions that create discomfort in the short term, but build a stronger organization long term. And if you're in that strike zone, you're doing the right things. But keeping everybody comfortable, happy, and smiling isn't really your job. It's making decisions that help everyone in the organization grow.
Yeah, I've got a CEO who we're recording, and one of his favorite anecdotes or lines is, I want my leadership team to be appropriately annoyed. Like, I want them
Yeah.
to be happy as humans, but I want, if we're not a little bit annoyed, then we're going to get too comfortable. And if we get too comfortable and cozy, that's when we get surpassed. So I love that thought process. And the last question here, Matt, is what's the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
Yeah, to operate with integrity, right? And be fair, be consistent, be clear. Um, People can handle tough decisions, or any type of decisions, if they really understand and believe in the process was fair and applies to everyone. Um, I think I think being consistent, clear, fair, act with integrity, that's the key. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, go back to Radical Candor, read the book, and you might feel the exact same way after reading that.
Indeed.
All right, Matt. Closing question, and then we'll get you out of here.
Sure.
Who should we interview next? Who's a leader who you believe is doing great work, who's thinking differently about leadership, talent, transformation, that you think would provide some value for the Activating Greatness audience?
Yeah, there's two people I have in mind I haven't had a chance to speak with yet that I'll definitely
Yeah.
get you hooked up with. But they're both leaders that are working at the intersection of technology and human capability. And they're thinking about how organizations evolve when, and well, not when, AI has already really become a part of everyday work, and it will continue to grow. But I need to connect with both of those leaders, and then make introductions, and we can make that
Yeah.
happen. Yeah, yeah, um,
I love it. That
yeah.
sounds fantastic. Well, Matt, I want to give you the microphone one final time. Any final thoughts for the audience here to sum up our conversation?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm grateful for the time, Alec, and the fantastic questions. Um, I think just keeping it simple, getting back to basics before you go headlong into RFIs and buying AI agents and AI technologies for whatever business process you're looking for. Don't even engage in those conversations. Stop what you're doing. Go back to your business process map and take a look at, dust it off. When's the last time you looked at it? Make sure it represents the accurate nature of the way your business is today. Strip out any of the nonsense, get it to bare bones, and then do it again. And then start thinking about which
Mm.
AI tools you might use, or which vendors you might start talking to, because they're going to make you do that exercise. Well, if they're good, they're going to make you do that exercise anyway before you even get started. So you want to go in and have that pre-work done. And along the way, asking yourself those tough questions, sprucing up your business process or whatever you're about to automate, you're going to learn a number of things, what you need, what you don't need, and what your expectations of the tool are going to be. Start small and, you know, do the wash, rinse, repeats. Start small, do some implementation, pressure test it, you know, then expand, and then go through additional phases, and then review that again every 6 months or every quarter, whatever you're able to do. That's the other big pitfall I think I see coming forward is the tool is only going to be as good as it is refreshed, and until such time that it can run itself, the human interaction piece is going to be huge to keep that up to date and keep it useful so that you're going to get the best out of it. But thanks again, Alec. I really appreciate it. I could do this for another 3 hours, but thank you, sir.
I can feel it. And there's a scenario I'm bugging you in a couple of months, and maybe we'll do something forward looking in 2027. And I just want to say thank you. I also want to say, if you've listened to this, make sure you go connect and follow Matt on LinkedIn, because that final answer after he said he didn't have anything else to add was absolutely brilliant, and why you should follow him. He's consistently posting about this topic, others within the realm of business, change management, transformation, and certainly somebody that we're thankful, you know, shared his expertise and time with this show and the audience. And if you did listen to it, make sure you connect with Matt. Make sure you leave a 5-star review. I'd love for this to be the episode that causes you to leave that review, leave the comment. Make sure you're downloading all of the episodes. I know I've mentioned it before, but somehow, some way, we're set up for 65 plus episodes in 2026, which is only possible with the unbelievable guests like Matt, but also the audience that continues to listen and give feedback and share the findings with us. So keep doing that. And thank you so much for being a part of this community of leaders who refuse to settle for good enough. Matt, one more time, thank you so much. Really appreciate you spending an hour with us today.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Time well spent.
Absolutely. And look forward to the next episode.